Believe in the me who believes in you. At first glance, this line might sound like simple encouragement, something shouted before the hero leaps into battle. But in Gurren Lagann, it's more than just motivational fluff. It is a philosophical cornerstone, a cry of faith, and a declaration of war against the very forces that seek to limit humanity's potential. Gurren Lagann isn't just a flashy mecha anime. It's a cosmic opera of resistance. Resistance to tyranny, to entropy, to the idea that human beings should ever remain small, silent, or static. From deep underground to the outer edge of the universe, Gurren Lagann is about one thing above all else: the unstoppable momentum of human spirit. A story not just of rebellion, but a revolution against gods, against fate, and against the fatalism of despair. This is a story of spiral energy, but it's also the story of the spiral of human potential. How we climb not in straight lines, but in loops. Sometimes we falter, sometimes we regress, but we keep spinning, we rise. This is Gurren Lagann. We begin in the earth, literally. Humanity has been driven underground, forced into darkness, both literally and symbolically. In this dystopia, people have forgotten the sky. They've become creatures of survival rather than progress, huddled in fear, governed by myths that teach them submission rather than action. Simone, our protagonist, begins as the ultimate underdog, timid, meek, defined by fear and shaped by isolation. But he has two things, a drill and a brother. Kamina is more than a character. He is ideology incarnate. Confidence weaponized, a human declaration of defiance wrapped in sunglasses and bravado. Kamina doesn't just want to go to the surface, he wants to carve a path for others. And more importantly, he plants the seeds of belief in Simone. Not belief in gods, not to systems, but belief in himself. This duality, the uncertain, hesitant Simone and the blazing, headstrong Kamina, mirrors the tension that lives inside every person. One voice says, you can't, the other roars, you must. Together, they break the world open. Spiral energy is introduced as a scientific concept, but it quickly takes on a metaphorical significance. It represents evolution, yes, but not the Darwinian adaptation. It is not the survival of the fittest, it is the survival of the most determined, the most unrelenting. Spiral energy is the will to push forward when the universe tells you to stop. Every major escalation in this series is not a result of better tech or superior tactics. It's a result of spirit, a refusal to yield, the belief that the impossible is just a temporal state. In the real world, we don't shoot galaxies from our fists, but we know that it means what it means to stand against something bigger than ourselves, whether it's grief, failure, or despair, and say no more. That's spiral energy. And in Gurren Lagann, this energy is the source of everything. It's why humans can evolve faster than any other species, why they frighten even the anti-spiral, beings who have tried to halt the course of growth itself. To fear spiral energy is to fear freedom, to fear uncertainty, and yet, those are the very things that make life worth living. Kamina dies. That moment is not just a plot twist, it's a thesis statement. Gurren Lagann doesn't lie to us. It doesn't suggest that belief is enough to protect us from loss. In fact, it asserts the opposite, that belief without pain is shallow, that to truly transcend, we must suffer. Simone's spiral breaks. He sinks into despair. The person who once believed in him is gone, and for a while, he stops believing in himself. This is crucial, because Gurren Lagann does not treat human will as something perfect. It is fragile, it is shaped by loss, it can fall, but more importantly, it can rise again. Nia enters as a counterbalance, not as Kamina's replacement, but as a different kind of light. Not one that blazes outward, but one that glows inward. She teaches Simone not to mimic Kamina, but to evolve past himself, to believe in himself. This evolution is the core of the spiral, not linear progress, not repetition, but a constant redefinition of the self. The final act of Gurren Lagann introduces anti-spirals, beings who have frozen themselves in an eternal moment to prevent universal destruction. To them, spiral energy is a threat, because it represents endless potential, and with it, endless risk. They are nihilism incarnate, fear of the unknown made manifest. Their argument is not entirely irrational. Spiral energy left unchecked could indeed bring ruin, but Gurren Lagann does not settle for safety. It argues that stagnation is worse than extinction. It argues that stagnation is a worse fate than extinction. That to be truly human is to risk everything for the possibility of something better. The final battles are absurdly large, literally galaxy-sized. They are rooted in a simple truth: better to fall reaching for the stars than to rot in the dark. Simon's final act is not conquest, it is succession. He passes the torch, not to someone stronger, but to someone ready. Because the point of the spiral is not to end at the top, but to keep turning. Gurren Lagann isn't realistic, but this is true. It understands that humans are small, that our lives are limited, that loss is inevitable. But it also argues that we are capable of transcendence, not through magic, not through destiny, but through will. The drill is not a weapon, it is a metaphor for effort, for movement, for the refusal to stop. This is what makes Gurren Lagann more than an anime. It's a myth in the truest sense. A story we tell to remember that we are more than what we are told. That even when the ceiling crashes down, we can dig upward, like Simone. At its philosophical heart, Gurren Lagann is a cosmic dialect. A battle of ideals, not just aesthetics. It stages the greatest war of all, between fear and faith. The anti-spirals aren't just antagonists. They are the final evolution of self-hatred. A species that so feared its own potential that it amputated its future. Their goal isn't to kill humanity, it's to stop it from growing. Not out of malice, but from terror. To them, progress is synonymous with collapse. Curation inevitably leads to destruction. Expansion breeds instability, so they freeze the universe in status. And in doing so, they reflect the very real, very human instinct to shrink away from possibility, to choose comfort over change, to fear the unknown so deeply that we sacrifice wonder for predictability. They are the embodiment of pessimistic determinism, a belief that there is a ceiling to human potential, and that reaching past it is not only foolish, but dangerous. But Gurren Lagann doesn't just reject this, it obliterates it. It says, yes, the unknown is dangerous, but that is where freedom lives. Think about the shape of the spiral. It's a loop, always moving, always turning, but never closing in. Instead, it expands. Every return to the same point comes with new perspective, new elevation, new strength. It's not a circle, it's a path. In human history, this spiral takes many forms. Technological progress, cultural evolution, personal growth after trauma, children who exceed their parents, and ideas that outlast bodies. The spiral in Gurren Lagann is a metaphor, not just for energy, but for time, for legacy, for everything we leave behind when we break barriers. It's why Simone doesn't remain a king. It's why he walks away, because true leaders don't sit at the top of the spiral. They push it from beneath. They empower others to go higher, to make their own path. And in that sacrifice, Simone becomes more than a hero. He becomes myth. What makes Gurren Lagann quietly so subversive is not its mathematism and visuals, but its tone. It doesn't pretend that grief doesn't exist, or that belief cures pain. Kamina dies, Nia disappears, entire worlds collapse, and yet it does not turn bitter. That's revolutionary. In an age of postmodern nihilism, where stories often end with cynicism and ambiguity, Gurren Lagann dares to be earnest. It dares to believe. It dares to shout hope across galaxies. Because a story that says you can grow, you can change, you can shape your own future is a threat to every system that thrives on obedience, on fear, and on stagnation. Gurren Lagann is not a story of chosen ones. It's a story that chooses everyone. In physics, entropy is the slow decline into disorder, the breakdown of systems, the heat death of the universe. In human beings, entropy is spiritual decay, the moment we stop dreaming, the moment we believe our circumstances define us, and we give up, not because we were defeated, but because we decided we couldn't win. That is the real enemy of Gurren Lagann. It's not the beastmen, not the anti-spirals, not the Gordogan. It's the voice that says, you are small. Stay that way. The anime answers to this is simple and explosive. Your drill is a drill that will pierce the heavens, not because the heavens are the final goal, but because the very act of trying or spiraling is the point. Gurren Lagann ends not in conquest, but in humility. Simone becomes a wanderer. He plants seeds, tells stories, smiles quietly while others rise. This is the final form of the spiral, not domination, but liberation. The idea that the world doesn't need one hero forever. It needs many. It needs voices, builders, dreamers, and believers. Simone stepping away is not a retreat. It is a culmination, a declaration that he has done his part. The others must now rise, because the spiral goes on. Who the hell do you think I am? This line, repeated like a mantra throughout the series, becomes less about ego and more about essence. It's not a challenge to others, it's a reminder to the self. You are more than what the world tells you. You're more than your past, you're a spiral. And if you keep turning, you will rise. So believe in yourself. Spin on.